Hello, everyone, and welcome to the slideshow, What Are Media? This is Critical Thinking 100.5, and I'm Professor James Michael. Some of you may recognize the term media, and you may immediately think of news media. And it is indeed the most common use of the term media, usually used to refer to newspapers and cable news. But we're going to talk about media and in a more broad sense. You see the word medium up there as well. That's just the singular form. So medium is like banana, whereas media is like bananas. Same meaning, just singular and plural. The term media is also used to mean something in between, not just news media. For example, not a large or a small, but a medium. And that one's fairly easy to picture in your mind. But as we go deeper into this, it becomes a little more difficult to imagine how something is in between and how it is transferring from one place to another. But we'll encounter a number of different ways throughout the slideshow. For example, in artists, whatever means they use to create is called their medium. So if an artist uses a canvas with paint, for example, that's considered to be their medium. Or if an artist carves wood, then the wood is considered to be their medium. Words can also be a medium, and indeed you are looking at a medium right now, this slideshow. You're also hearing the medium of speech coming from me. You're using the medium of your eyes and your ears and your brains to comprehend this. So you can see how this, when you get deeper into the philosophy of it, it becomes a little bit more challenging to grasp. If you want to say something, you have no choice but to choose a medium, because speech, writing, and gesture are all media. They are the thing in between what you are thinking and what another person is hearing, reading, or seeing. Another example is a psychic. They're also sometimes called a medium because they're supposedly in between the truth of things and the person who hired them. So, for example, if I wanted to know if I should buy a lottery ticket today, I could go to a psychic. If I chose to believe in a psychic, I could go to a psychic and ask. And the idea is that the psychic would be able to access the ultimate truth. And then I wouldn't get access to that. I would have to listen to what the psychic says to me. And then I would have to choose whether to believe that psychic and make my decision about a lottery ticket in that way. So you can see how a psychic is in between supposedly the truth of things and myself. Another way to think of the term is to consider what a lack of media would be like. Take a moment to think of a news reporter that does not have access to the concept of mediation. They would not be able to see anything, lacking the medium of sight, nor would they be able to hear or feel anything, lacking the medium of a body. They would not be able to interview anyone, lacking the medium of speech. Even if they were able to acquire information, which of course would not be possible without media, but if we were to pretend that they could do that, they wouldn't be able to write about it, talk about it, or have it published, since all of those things are media. So we could ask the question, would anything be possible without mediation? And the answer is, according to the philosophical discussion of what media is, no. Media is required for all expression, and media is required in order to experience anything. Our thoughts and our bodies are even considered to be mediated. So you could not think, eat, or move without mediating. That may be a little confounding, but think about, if you had a thought, I'm hungry, there is no way for you to sate that hunger without moving to go get some food, or if you were incapable of doing that, saying to someone that I'm hungry, so somehow you'd have to convey to the world what you're experiencing so that you could alleviate your hunger. So why does this matter? This is an ever important question. And one answer is that by recognizing media for what they are, we can come to consider how the form of media is flawed. And recall, this class is, we started with the foundation of citizenship. What is citizenship? And part of citizenship is being able to pursue the truth. And the way we pursue truth is mostly through media. And if media is flawed, then as critical thinkers, we have a problem. We have to decide which media we can trust and which media we cannot. And note that it is if, not, it's not if, but how, because all media are flawed. Media are always estimations. They are always inexact. So even though I'm saying things to you, I don't know exactly what you're understanding from that. Even though there are things written down here, I can't be sure that you are picking up what I'm putting down, if you know what I mean. I can't be sure that you're understanding what it is that I'm trying to convey to you. So we're always working in this gray area where we're estimating meaning. And as a result, we have to account for those little errors. When you say something, someone may hear something different from what you mean. You probably have experienced that before. When 100 people hear something, they come away with 100 different understandings. And that means everything we hear, see, think, or feel is susceptible to being partially, largely, or wholly misrepresented. This often happens on accident. This sometimes happens on purpose. And I'm sure you can think of examples in the news, on Facebook, on Twitter, among our political leaders, where it seems that the media you're experiencing, what someone says, what someone has written, a video about something, is not based on the truth, and they're not being honest with you. That is because media allows you to be dishonest. It gives you that opportunity. And so as a critical thinker, you have to be able to differentiate all of that. Who are the people using media to be dishonest? Who are the people using media to be honest? And even those who are being honest, are they making mistakes without intending to do so? Some examples of misunderstanding in media. My sister, this is just an example, my sister and my mom got in an argument. They each told me what happened, but they each told me different things. Perhaps that's happened to you, something similar to that, and you listened to one side of the story and you felt like you saw their point of view and you felt bad for them. Then you heard the other side of the story and you understood their point of view and you felt bad for them. What is the truth between those two things? You can't really just take the two sides of the story and find the average and call that the truth, because no one said that. You just made that up. You could be inaccurate in your estimations. You couldn't listen to someone who happened to be, you could listen to them, but you couldn't fully trust someone who happened to be there and witness that conversation, because maybe that person favors your sister or favors the mom. Maybe that person was triggered by a certain word that was used, or was triggered by a certain event that occurred within that conversation, and it changed their perspective on things. So you can gather all of that information, but that doesn't mean that any of it is perfectly true. In fact, none of it is. Some say coronavirus came from a bat. Some say it came from Bill Gates. Some say it came from the Democratic Party. Whom do we believe? And this is a conundrum of our era, that we get these kinds of supposed facts flying at us and in great disagreement with one another. So whom do we believe? So there's a process for trying to figure this out. And I will say with about 99% certainty, coronavirus did come from a bat. There's a lot of research behind that and evidence. And so that's what we're going to get into eventually. How do we figure that stuff out when we have all this media and it's all an estimation? How do we find the thing that is closest to the truth? Not the truth, but the closest to the truth. Another example is that U.S. history books from California are vastly different from U.S. history books from Texas, because the publishers in each state chose how to represent American history according to their perspectives. I bring that up because in the United States, every student in high school is required to take U.S. history. And when you read a history textbook, you assume that what you're reading is based on the truth. However, these are based on the interpretations of what thousands of historians have said about what happened. And those who are writing tech that because these two main corporations come from California and Texas. Those who are in Texas tend to have a more conservative view of it, and they tend to celebrate history in a way that American history was all about success, mostly about overcoming hardship and so forth. Whereas California textbooks are more likely to spend more time on slavery, on Native Americans, on the hardships of immigrants, the ways in which there have been problems in the United States. And it's not necessarily, there will be celebratory material in a California based textbook, but they will also challenge that notion of American success by saying, yeah, well, it was rooted in colonization and taking land from Native Americans and then importing Africans into the country to work as slaves. So that's very problematic. And the Texas textbooks will tend to avoid that because they want to propose this view of American history intentionally that is celebrating it, whereas again the California ones are trying to challenge it. The world is a media making machine. Every text, wave, handshake, word, email, article, essay, thought, painting, movie, website, song, lyric, dance, everything that attempts to reproduce something are media. And as living beings, we are forced to mediate every day. And that, by the way, it looks like meditate. It's not meditate. It's just the verb form of media. So we have medium is the singular, media is the plural, mediate is a verb. In order to stop mediating, you would have to stop having a body, which of course we need to live. Media are then means through which we live and convey our experiences. They are also a way we distort the truth, often to fit our perspectives. And that's what we have to balance. We have no choice but to mediate. They are the way we live and convey our experiences. They're the way we pursue truth, but they're also the way we distort truth. This is where critical thinking comes into play. Not everyone has the opportunity to take a class like this or study a concept like this, and as a result, they're just bombarded with media, and it just is a confusing mess. But with the skills we learn in this class, you'll be able to start looking at certain kinds of media and saying, this one is problematic because. This one, it looks really good because, and make those kinds of distinctions. One more use of the term to consider is immediate, a pretty common word. To be immediate, and notice that I've italicized it there to demonstrate that it is a prefix and it means to negate the word that's about to come. Like impossible means not possible. Immediate means not to have any media at all. That's the literal meaning of the word. You probably don't think of it that way, but for example, in order for this to take place, you must use belief. For example, you can believe that a religious symbol is an immediate connection to a spiritual power. So in this case, someone could look at a painting, for example, and they could say, this is not a painting of the God, this is the God itself. I'm experiencing it. And I am not here to challenge that belief because beliefs are beliefs and we should allow people to have them. But just so you know, that's the one way to get past the problem of media is to believe that there is no media there. And that's something that many people do. Note that if you use critical thinking here, however, you have to account for the medium. If it is a book that symbolizes, you have to consider the paper and words as media, and therefore not wholly accurate. You also have to consider the thoughts of the person who put the words to the paper. And, the Bible is famous for, it supposedly was passed from God immediately into the brains of those who wrote it. And some people believe that. critical thinkers, and you can actually have both things. You could both believe that and think critically about that and say, well, it is a little questionable as to whether those writers change the meaning a little bit, and that sort of thing. So anytime something passes through media, it has the opportunity to be distorted. Another example is a wooden cross that symbolizes, and some people believe the cross is the thing. It is the God. But if you're thinking critically about it, you have to consider the wood itself as a representation of the spiritual power. Representation is media, whereas immediate means there is no representation, but only the thing and the truth in one. So going back to this cross, if you see the cross as a representation, then you're seeing it as media. But other people do not see the cross as a representation, but the actual God itself. So our last slide on this, just a note about media in our class. We will use such a wide variety of media, and I've selected media mostly that I have come to trust over the years. But at the same time, one of your tasks is to consider, how is this form of media flawed? How is this writing flawed? How is this statistic flawed? How is what I'm seeing flawed? How is my perspective flawed? How is that person's perspective flawed? And the bombardment of media that we experience through the media making machine that we call our world, we will have to apply certain techniques to be able to understand which ones we can trust, which ones we can use in our papers, which ones we can add to our store of knowledge, and so forth. Without doing that, you're just basically grabbing, most people without going through the process of critical thinking will just take whatever media they agree with. But that is very problematic because you could be wrong and your beliefs could be harmful to other people. And I'm not really saying you personally, I'm just saying, well, you could find people in the world that you have experienced what they've said or what they've done in politics, in sports, in the arts, in a friend, a family member, something like that, where because of what they believe, from your perspective, they are causing harm in the world. And one temptation is to just say, you're wrong. But what you need to do is apply the critical thinking strategies so that you can have a reason to explain why you think that is wrong. So that's kind of where we're headed with media in this class, to give you the tools and the strategies needed to be able to express why certain media is useful to us and why certain media is more harmful to us. That's the end of the slideshow. I hope it was useful to you. As always, if you have questions, please send me an email, or you're welcome to come talk to me about this in my office hours.